Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Samira Tilley, Industry Marketing Manager at Assemble Systems. In today's webinar, we will look at how McKinstry is using Assemble for earned value tracking. Now let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Brent Ramos, Sales Director at Assemble. Go ahead, Brent.
Thank you, Samira. Appreciate it. And I'm really excited about today's webinar. This is it's a great use case from the guys here at McKinstry on leveraging data and quantities really beyond just that quantity takeoff or estimation that we talk about so much and that we're so great at, but actually bringing those quantities and information out into the field where we can get work done. So quick agenda today. After we introduce ourselves here on the panel side and introduce our company, our respective companies, we're going to hand it over to the McKinstry team to talk everybody through their use case, and then we'll leave some time at the end for questions and answers. For the introduction, just a brief note on myself. My background is in the specialty subcontractor space. I spent about 10 years beginning in the field and eventually moving into the office, and where I was focused on estimating and project management. For the past 7 years, I've really had the privilege of working with contractors and the design community to understand and adopt technology that'll help win new work and, more importantly, drive efficiencies that can improve profit margin. CJ, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. So CJ Best with McKinstry, currently in the construction technology program manager role. I've been with McKinstry for just about 6 years now. Started out as a project engineer and kind of worked up through that route. So project engineer, project manager, did a few stints in our fabrication facilities, as well as our detailing and BIM group. So got some awesome experience there, and have now been on our construction technology team for the last almost 8 months now.
And I'm Spencer Hobson, Senior Project Engineer with McKinstry. I've been with the company about 2.5 years. All that time I've been spent on the operations side in our mechanical majors department.
Thanks, guys. And just a quick note on Assemble. Assemble's really, I talked about quantities and quantity management. Assemble, it really is construction's best quantity management solution. And what we're doing is making models accessible through the cloud, and really more importantly, we make models simple to understand and use. For entire construction teams to get in, view, and organize model data, and then connect that data and quantities off to either project reports or to other construction systems. So you guys want to introduce McKinstry?
Sure thing, Brett. So yeah, a little bit about McKinstry. We were founded in 1960, so we have over 50 plus years of experience. We have 21 office locations, and we're headquartered in Seattle, Washington. We are recognized as a national leader in designing, constructing, and operating and managing high-performing facilities, and I'll talk a little bit about how that kind of breaks down on the next slide. And then in terms of size and scale, we have over 2,100 employees, including over 165 licensed professional engineers. And we really focus on a partnership mentality that focuses on our customers' needs. And we really strive to be the single point of accountability for the life cycle of our building. We don't want to be the contractor that comes in for one portion, maybe that's the build phase, and then pull out. And we work with a variety of school districts, universities, municipalities, hospitals, and private companies nationwide. So a little bit more about McKinstry's capabilities. We provide consulting services. A big portion of our business is around construction projects, and that's the line of business that we're going to be focusing on today. Spencer and I are part of the construction division, and then we also have energy projects that are scaled across the nation and provide facility services. It's worth noting that our construction group is focused in the Pacific Northwest, so Seattle, Portland, Spokane, and Inland Northwest, and then our energy and facility groups span across the map that you saw on the previous slide. So a little bit more about our cycle of services. So McKinstry's focus on being the single point of accountability is really driven through by the fact that we provide consulting, engineering services, construction, commissioning, operate and sustain. We know that that's not the best offering for all of our customers, and so we will provide any sort of this combination of expertise to provide the customers the most value that they need. We really thrive on complex and challenging projects where we take a design-build approach and are able to bring all of the different expertise that we have to the table.
That's awesome, Spencer. And just to note, I mean, for the expertise and perspective that you guys bring by owning the entire life cycle and being able to draw on that resource just to understand how to improve what we're doing here in this little segment. It's an awesome advantage that you guys have.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. So I think a lot of people are probably curious about not only what we're going to present today, but just other areas of research and development that our team is working on. And so a huge kind of buzzword out in the construction community right now is model-based estimating. And so we are aggressively attacking that and figuring out how does that embed with our current workflows and potentially disrupt as well. And then another piece is how do we integrate our building information model with our supply chain. Construction has a massive supply chain, and we've, as part of that, we've developed an in-house order management platform, which is that Omega logo you see on the right side, that is helping to tie those things together for us. The mechanization and automation of work that can kind of manifest in a lot of different ways, just whether it's through Microsoft Flow or different web-based platforms we're developing, or even just simple things for reducing clicks on a process in AutoCAD or something like that. And then progress and productivity tracking, which is really at the heart of what we're looking at today, is a big focus for us. And then there's other areas as well. There's a few key nuggets that I want everyone to, I guess, take note or hopefully leave with today. And one of those is really define your problem and then seek out the solution. Our team, as we've been going through and evaluating a ton of different software platforms and gone through a bunch of demonstrations, without understanding your problem before you go into the demo, you may or may not understand how well it applies to your business and what you're trying to accomplish. So that's one piece. And the second one is this quote from a CEO that did a demonstration for us. And he said that he's seen a lot of cool tech out there, but it's not useful. And so that's just something that our team kind of keeps in our mind as we go into demonstrations around, hey, that was kind of a cool or flashy tech, but it's not useful and it doesn't actually solve a problem that we currently have. So keep those in mind as you kind of go throughout the world and looking for technology solutions to integrate with your construction operations.
CJ, thanks so much for that overview. Now we can dive into the use case that we've been using. It's on a Seattle life sciences building. It's a little bit about the building. It's 345,000 square feet of office and lab space. On one individual floor of this 13-story building, there's 47 tons of ductwork and 5.5 miles of piping. So tracking our install progress is not only essential to the project, but it's also a cumbersome task. So we've been trying to find a way to efficiently change the way we track earned value. So for those that don't know what earned value is, it's a metric that tracks efficiency and gives us insight into the health of the project. For this use case, we've been using sheet metal. So our way of tracking sheet metal is pounds, which you see in both equations. So essentially what we're looking at is the percent complete of install, multiplying that by our budgeted hours, which gives us what we call hours earned, and dividing that by the actual hours we have spent on the project. So a number above 1 is we are more efficient than we planned on, and below 1 is less efficient. Something to note is you can use any unit of measure in that metric. We use pounds for sheet metal. On our plumbing and piping side, we use linear feet, and whatever your contractor works in, you can install, you can plug in any number there, and the metric will still work. We also do it on the monetary side, comparing budget dollars to actual hours, or actual dollars, excuse me, and that changes based on your crew dynamics. So you might have a higher or lower dollar rate based on your crew mix-up. So it's also important to track that along with your productivity. So here's our current method of earned value. It's a quick snapshot of how we track it. It's extremely time-consuming because currently how we do it is we go out in the field, manually highlight and mark up a drawing, then come back to your desk and manually take off this drawing. It's inaccurate for a couple different reasons. For one, on verticals, we're having to guess in a 2D model, so whenever there's drops, we have to plug in a number. So we assume, okay, every drop is 10 feet and automatically add that to where we see drops, which is obviously inaccurate because not every drop is the same depth. There's also a ton of up and down movement throughout the floor when you have layers and layers of overlapping ductwork. It's also tricky because, as you can see in the picture, there's those layers, so you're trying to guess and remember exactly which piece is installed and trying to trace it as the lines go away as it's under some other duct. The other biggest problem is we're unable to compare it to the budget. So when we get our numbers from estimating, those budgets come in pounds, and we do a takeoff, it's in linear feet. So there's no way to have that initial insight of, is our budget in line with our actual numbers after we've designed and detailed this building.
So a key piece, Spencer, I'll add in here. The current system, pre-assemble, we would track ductwork in lineal feet, and now with assemble, we're able to track with pounds. It's just a key distinction that allows us to be a lot more accurate, and Spencer's going to jump into that here in the next slide.
Yeah, so building on that accuracy that CJ was talking about, so now in assemble, it pulls directly from CAD. So every piece of ductwork in the building has an associated weight with it. So now when we sum up the floor, we are able to directly compare our detailed CAD model to our budget. We now have that initial insight of our budget is spot on, it's heavy, it's light, which is something we never had before, which is awesome to get that really early insight into our project. I've also found that it's super efficient. Because we brought on assemble actually partway through the project, it was really nice because we were able to truly compare side by side our original method of earned value to this assemble method of earned value. So there's another project engineer who is working on the sheet metal earned value along with me. So we would go out to the field at the same time to see if it was faster. And not only would I come back to the office before him doing the markup, but once you're back in the office, your math is done for you because assemble is able to calculate the weight and sum it. The other really important denotion here is when we're using weight, we are now able to accurately compare sizes of ductwork. So before, when we were using linear feet as our measurement in earned value, a 6-inch round piece of duct would carry the same value as a big piece of 120 by 60 rectangular ductwork, even though they should be viewed differently because 6-inch round is going to go in much faster than your giant medium pressure ductwork. So now, because we're going by weight, each piece of duct shows up as an accurate percentage of the entire floor. I've also found that it's very easy to use. The controls are simple. It's very customizable. You can make it work exactly the way you want it to. You're not stuck in the ways of, this is how it's set up. Everyone can make it different. I've also found that we use iPad, so the Apple app is extremely similar to the desktop app, so you don't have to worry too much about learning two completely different systems. And to give you guys a quick little insight, we can jump into a demo here. So when you're in Assemble, here is one of our views that I've created. This is one of the floors. And the first thing I've done is created our buckets, meaning I've broken up each system into, as you can see on the right here, I've broken them up into low pressure, medium pressure, supply, exhaust. And the nice thing with that is you can make it as granular or as generic as possible, as much as you want. So on a complex floor like this, we decided that we needed to really break it up in order to accurately track and be able to give us valuable information. So when I was initially doing this, I was manually clicking every piece of duct and assigning it to a category, which took forever, and I was a little concerned about the value we get out of the amount of time it took to do this for every floor. But luckily, partway through this project, I discovered that our detailers, when they draw in layers that already are in these systems. So then I discovered that making these buckets took a matter of minutes. You can make these to whatever buckets you want it to be in, depending on what your contractor does or what you want to track. So the other really nice thing is you were able to really quickly sort both on the left here in what I would consider kind of my model tree, or on the right, which is what items are colored by. So currently, each different system is a different color. So our medium pressure exhaust is orange, our medium pressure supply is dark blue, which gives you a quick view of the different systems. But I can instantly change what I'm coloring by to a different item. So you can do it by status, which I will show you here in a second, or by order number. So the beauty of that is it gives not only myself and our team, but upper management instant insight into the project. So this other view I have pulled up here is our install tracking progress. So items that are green are installed, items that are orange are ordered, and items that are grayed out are neither. So those are, we've drawn it, but we haven't quite sent it to our shop to be fabricated. This is great because, like I said, in one quick view, anyone is able to see exactly what's installed, exactly what's coming up next, and what's still down the road. On a complex floor like this, our shop drawings are broken up actually into 8 different drawings. So before, someone would have to pull up 8 separate drawings to get the whole picture of how the floor is looking. And now they can look on one screen, pull it up in a matter of seconds and know. So it's awesome for upper management view. We've also used it for trade coordination. So now in a meeting, we can pull this up and say, this is exactly what's in, this is what's coming next week, to give everyone the view of knowing where their partners and where the other companies are going to be, rather than kind of relying on a vague description.
Yeah, that brings up a great point, Spencer, that, you know, previously we're working off all these different sets of information, however they're siloed, whether it's broken out in sheets or different spreadsheets. Here, I know you switched screens and jumped into a new window, but where we're looking at the same data set, this is all the same information. It's just a different way of grouping or coloring that single model data that's up in the cloud.
Exactly. And I'll show you guys here in a little bit the different views you can make. And one thing I found awesome is no matter how many views you make, so we separate by floor and we have a whole building model, and depending on different people's uses, we have different views. But if you change a property in one view, it changes it in the other views. So you don't have to worry about people looking at different versions of the data. And to give you guys,
excellent,
just to show you the assemble, if you select a piece of ductwork, like I've selected this little piece, there's properties that we are able to change, which are customizable. And like I said, we've been doing order number, status. So this one is installed. It was installed on the 24th. It was part of this order. And then those are things that I've manually inputted. And then all of your CAD data is right here. It gives you elevation. It gives you size, weight, length, which is extremely powerful now that all the data is in one place, rather than trying to hunt and peck through 5 different places to find all the information you need.
Yeah, and you made a point a minute ago, Spencer, about doing it the old manual way, right? It's the track and trace method that we're used to, and you were replicating that here in Assemble, or pick and click and select and then set a tag on it, just like we would throw a condition or a markup over a 2D document. But this is the data that you're actually leveraging to regroup and filter your data. It's already baked into the model, and you're able to utilize that to speed up your conditioning process.
Exactly. Like you said, it completely eliminated the duplicate efforts. Before, we were transferring information across multiple different devices, and now our detailers draw everything. All the information is there. So now when they save their CAD model, there's a plug-in to upload to Assemble, and once they draw it, it gets pulled up here, and we have the latest and greatest information with all the associated data.
Excellent. And then, Spencer, the questions are starting to pour in about conditioning this data. And somebody asked, did you guys use the P6 or drive or connect the schedule data directly out of your P6 schedule, or was that conditioned by you guys separately?
Currently, the scheduling data comes from us. So the goal eventually is to bring everything into one place, but we're still in the process of incorporating this into our company. So currently our foremen order off our shop drawings, and those shop drawings have delivery dates, which I then manually plug into here. Excellent. And then the install date comes from me. But the eventual goal is order from here, you plug in your date, then when the shop builds it, they can then say that, hey, this has been built, it's been delivered, it's on site. So we're currently working on integrating all those scheduling pieces into one. It's currently in a few different places, but that's something we hope to do eventually, for sure.
Excellent. And probably worth pointing out to the audience that, when it does make sense, we do have a P6 integration to tie P6 activity data directly to that model and semi-automate pulling the activity information in.
Yeah. So to give you a super quick overview of bringing this, changing the data, I guess, in Assemble. So like I said, when you have your iPad or other mobile device that you want to use, all these views automatically upload. You can download a view and make it available offline, so you don't have to worry about Wi-Fi or a hotspot in your building. I know that's always a struggle to find connectivity, especially when you're down on P4 and whatnot. So you make your views available offline, at which point you can make any edits you want to assemble properties. So for instance, if this run of duct was installed, I would go in, click piece by piece, which is essentially our new way of highlighting a drawing, at which point I can change the status from what would be ordered to installed and change the install date from blank to I do my walks on Monday. So there's only one date per week. And then when you come back to your office, you hop onto online mode and it automatically syncs. And then you open up Assemble and all of the edits you made in the field are now showing up on your desktop and will show up for anyone else that is invited to your project. And now if you remember that old view from the slideshow of our old way of showing earned value, it's a manual highlight of a different color each week. And now Assemble automatically does it for you with this color by property function, which on the previous view I had it coloring by whether it's installed or not, and now I have it shown week to week. This gives anyone on the project, and like I said, especially management, upper management, people that aren't on site all the time, people that don't have the day-to-day knowledge and insight on the project, can quickly pull this up, look at a week, and see. You can see a lot about the project. You can see where we were super efficient, where we were inefficient, and then we can really dive in, especially in some postmortem studies, to try to figure out, okay, these weeks were amazing. These weeks weren't as good. Why was that? What was it? Was it simply we were installing bigger material? Was there people in our way? Was there lack of coordination? Whatever it may be. But we now have this instant view and a great view of the entire floor showing week by week production. And then once you're able to say what's installed, what's not installed, so this view here we're working with, showing everything in green is installed. There is a icon over here for import export. You can export to Microsoft Excel, and all of the data with every piece of duct on this floor pulls into Excel. And this is where the huge efficiency comes from with Assemble. So like I said previously, we would highlight up a drawing similarly to this and say, this material is installed, this is not installed. Then we go back to our desk and either take it off in Bluebeam or take it off with an estimator's wheel, whatever it may be. But that's that duplicate effort I was talking about earlier, where you go and highlight a drawing and then kind of have to highlight it again. And it's really, I always struggled with it on the project I was before, doing it that way, of trying to remember exactly which pieces have been counted, which ones haven't, trying to trace the duct when it's underneath two other, where now in here it does it for you. And when you talk about being able to accurately see the model itself, I can now drag a model around. I can zoom in as close as I so please and really easily manipulate the model to get the exact view I need to be able to accurately track what's been installed, what hasn't been installed. So once I'm back at my desk, I have my model done. We pull Excel, and these columns are completely customizable. I don't know exactly the number off the top of my head, but it seems like there's 50 different columns that you could choose depending on which data you want. And again, 10 or so of those columns are modified by the user. Those items like status and activity ID, those are those systems I broke up into the statuses installed or not installed. And then the endless amount of CAD data that we're pulling in can also be shown in Excel. So I did a quick sort here. I sorted by what's installed. I sorted by system. So we're going to look at supply, medium pressure in this instance. And then if you go into your weight column, it's a simple Control-Shift, highlight it all, and we have 16,000 pounds of ductwork installed. And again, when you talk about efficiency and accuracy. As you can see, this goes down to a decimal place, and that took 2 seconds, whereas those of you that have done manual takeoffs, you know that the hours it can take to go through, and then you go back and double check and your number comes out differently and you're not sure which one to use. And now we have this extreme confidence in the numbers that it's pulling up. And now I did supply medium pressure. And now to go to your next system, it's a simple, I don't want to look at medium pressure, I'll look at low pressure, choose a different system to look at, highlight them all again. We have 7,600 pounds of low pressure. So I think that those two things are the huge win with Assemble. It's not only the efficiency, but the accuracy. And we did our double check against our manual things, and numbers are coming out great, and we're super happy with how things have been running.
That's great. That sure beats my old method of going out and doing a site walk and then spitballing some round off number for my progress billing. So I like it.
Exactly. And then we'll jump into another piece here that CJ can cover, just showing that with all the data that gets pulled in to Assemble, you still aren't tied to just that data. There's ways that we can manipulate, change that data to fit exactly our needs.
Perfect. And just one quick question before we jump there. There's always the concern among folks who have been around utilizing models for a number of years, especially those who have been connecting it to a schedule, that as you build intelligence into a model or a static model, that as design evolves and models evolve, you're going to lose some of that data as soon as you get that next rev or that next revision of the model. How are you guys keeping that in sync?
Yeah, so when you look here, so we'll go back to Assemble really quickly. It does require coordination with your detailing team because it is a static model. So once they upload, it's there. However, with the plugin in our CAD, when they save their CAD model, and they know they made changes, they can quickly upload to Assemble. So you do have to double check to make sure that people are updating both, making sure that is in line. But it is a simple process. It's not a day-long thing to create this Assemble model. It's a quick upload from CAD. And the other great thing that we've seen when you're talking about comparing static models is Assemble has a feature of comparing old versions. So when a new version gets uploaded to Assemble, you can compare the last revision or any revision before it, and it shows what's the same, what's changed, what's added, what's deleted, and you can quickly get that double check of, okay, this major change just happened, let's make sure we captured it. So it does take some manual labor and manual checking, but you can quickly determine whether or not they're lining up.
And Brent, another key piece to note, so a little bit more on the, technical side. So when a new model is posted, as long as the detailers have not deleted and then redrawn something, all of the Assemble properties that you see on the right side of the screen there will be carried through to the new model. So we don't have to reduplicate any data. And then anything that's been added, it's pretty easy to see through that show changes functionality that Spencer talked about. And so it's an awesome feature to have because we know that models are going to iterate over time, and even after we have the MEP sign-off model, we know that there's going to be some changes or revisions based off RFIs or ASIs, and so we don't have to worry that all of our work and our data isn't going to transfer through the next time we publish.
Excellent. Thanks, CJ.
Yeah, and actually one more thing to add to that is, I think I mentioned it earlier, but all of your data transfers between views. So on this project, we might have 30 different views. As you can see here, we have plumbing, sheet metal, piping, and colored and organized based on what we want to view in that particular instance, just for efficiency. So we don't, even though the toggling is quick, we can instantly look at the different views. They take minutes to set up. We have on the left here is all of our CAD models. You can click as many of those as you want to import to your view, save it, then you have your views. But the beauty is for instance, I have 4 different level 10 sheet metal views. So people might be concerned about the info between differing views, but if you change, they're all linked together. So if I change something in my sheet metal progress view and you look in my supplier view, that change is in both views. So you don't have to worry about changing every individual view to line up. You change one view, and wherever that piece of ductwork is, like CJ was saying, that property changes in every view.
Great point. And a great point on these filtered views and being able to take this even further simplified set of information out into the field, just looking at the piping on level 12 instead of seeing the spaghetti bowl, I call it, of all the HVAC, plumbing, and electrical.
Yeah, and our beyond earned value, our field guys have really latched on to Assemble. I know they're used to flying around in CAD and working in the 3D model space, and they've found that Assemble is a far easier, simplified view. So they've really enjoyed using it in the field as well as us using it for earned value. CJ, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Yeah, so one of the really exciting things that I first saw when we learned about Assemble was, oh man, we have access to all this model data. We don't have to bug our detailers anymore. Any mechanical contracting firms, or basically any firms that do detailing and BIM work, I think you guys can agree that it's usually one of the most constrained resources that you have. If you have a plethora of detailers, please give me a call after this. We'd love to talk. So for the class editor portion, I was really excited to hear when this came out, because it's allowing us to build formulas based upon model properties. So something that you can do in AutoCAD or Revit, but have never been able to do before, kind of outside the model authoring software. And so the example here that we're using is a custom assemble property that I built called volume in gallons as the unit of measure, and I use the width and the cut length for mechanical piping to calculate that. And so the formula is on the bottom there. I'm not going to go through a walkthrough, but the class editor, it's a desktop application that allows you to take any of the assembled properties and further condition your data for whatever you'd like to see. And so in this case, we are always interested in how many gallons is in a certain system. And so once we had all of the model objects with the systems that they're associated with, because when our detailers draw, they draw the piping, and one of the properties it has is system. And so we can filter down by system and by area, and now we have the volume for chemical flushing or chemical treatment and our flush planning. And so we've given all of this power to our field teams to be able to leverage this information and not have to send an email or call a detailer that may not get back to them for a day or two. And so it's really about like democratizing the data and giving the field teams everything that they need to be successful on a project.
Yeah, fantastic point. And a question I have to you guys, we talked about conditioning model data and getting it ready. What is the effort level involved in getting this model? Now you mentioned this was a pretty complex project that you guys tackled. Great place to start. But what went into actually getting this model ready to take out into the field and start updating the statuses?
Go for it, Spencer.
Yeah, I'll give a quick piece, CJ, and then you can jump in and add on your end. So like I said, at first it was cumbersome, right? I was selecting each piece of ductwork, changing its system to get it ready to go out into the field, to have it lined up with our earned value bucket. But then once I discovered that our detailers already draw in those buckets, it became a quick filter. So actually looking at this class editor, you can see the group by, and right now it says category work package at the top. There's a group by layer, which is exactly how our detailers draw. And again, it's the layers that our earned value perfectly fit into. So then it became a check one box, which selects all of our medium pressure supply, for instance, on that floor. Then you go into your class editor, or not class editor, excuse me, you go into your assemble properties, which are manually adjusted by us, and it became activity ID, changed it, typed in supply, medium pressure, and it was done. So it went from the first floor I did it on, it took me half a day to do, and then that took me 5 minutes to do, and then we were able to walk out in the field. So the change is amazing. So not only was the change great from what I first thought assemble was, in comparing to the old method when the takeoff itself would take a day to do to track every piece of duct and try to remember what supply and exhaust and working your way back to air handlers. Now that it does it for you, so once I have my 5 minutes to set up our buckets, the takeoff is done. So what used to be honestly probably days of work to set up your earned value is now something you could do on your lunch break.
That's a great measure.
Yeah.
And really that speaks to the part of the value of Assemble is making complicated model data like a layer. And for me, I didn't know what a layer or a family was before getting into the technology world. But I knew what I needed to track and trace, and being able to use that information that's already there to group, sort, filter, and append your data can save an enormous amount of time.
For folks might have questions around actually getting it from the model authoring tool into the cloud and onto Assemble. So in terms of a process for that, it's very simple. There's an add-in that you can download for Revit and AutoCAD, and we don't really, the only checks that we do are to make sure that nothing is hidden within the file, but otherwise we just publish as the models exist. There's no special like scripts we have to run or any other kind of conditioning that we have to do within the VDC group to prepare this data for the field teams to use. So it's a pretty seamless upload to make all the data available for the project teams.
Awesome. With that, I'd like to give it back to you guys for any closing thoughts or suggestions that you'd make to anyone who's there on the line.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start. So I try and leave people and they ask me like, what is this Assemble thing? Why is it so cool? I think if you can think of, for those of you who are familiar with and have used kind of pivot tables in Excel before, visualize Assemble as a pivot table in the 3D environment. So it allows you to slice and dice the information however you want, just like in Excel. You can color by, change visibility settings. There's so much flexibility that it's hard to describe all of the use cases in one setting like this. The other piece I'd leave you guys with is definitely find out who your local Assemble rep is and give them a call and see if it makes sense for you guys. The beauty that we have is we produce all of our own models, and so we have instant access to a ton of model data. It may not be the same case for you if you're a general contractor that's dependent on a consultant or architect or engineer that's providing the data for you, but you will find that even when it's coming out of just native Revit, there is still some good information that you can get, and then you can use the Assemble properties to make it whatever you need to be.
Excellent.
Yeah, and tagging on to that, I think we started this process on the project I'm working on as an earned value tool, and we knew earned value was kind of an archaic system and trying to find a way to improve it. So we started on the earned value path, and it seems like at least, once a week, once every other week, as I'm playing around in Assemble and changing data and changing properties, I seem to come up with more and more ideas of how Assemble can be used and leveraged. So we haven't even began to unfold and uncover all the different uses for it, but seeing that I keep coming up with these different ideas, I know that the power is, I honestly think the power of Assemble is what you want it to be, which I think is awesome. It's a multifaceted tool that can be used in so many different ways. And the last thing I'll say is this was a total trial pilot run for us, and most people would probably pilot a new tech, a new tool on a simple project on, one that would be easier for everyone to use. And we decided we'd pilot it on one of the biggest, most complex jobs our company has ever done. And with that, everyone that's used it has found it to be easy, efficient, fast, accurate. So, if we can do it on this project, we decided we could do it on any project. So I know that I'm not going to go away from this method of earned value, and and hopefully continue to push it for other uses along the way.
That's awesome, and I can't thank you guys enough for myself and the Assemble team and all the folks on the line here. You guys have not only come up with an awesome presentation, but you guys really forged a trail into new workflows utilizing this technology that typically hasn't been seen as an earned value tracking tool. So your innovation and your input and your willingness to share with the community here is really appreciated. So awesome stuff, guys, and thanks for doing this, and thanks to everybody else for joining today.